Southface Sessions Leadership Speaker Series. I'm James Marlowe, President of Southface, and the king of the short introduction, because I want Jacqui to have all the time to tell her stories and to be part of this very special speaker series. So we're going to have a Q&A and some discussion, but in my brief introduction, when I think of Jacqui Chew, her official language says she operates at the intersection of storytelling, innovation, and impact. I think she operates at the intersection of leadership because she has done so many things in her very varied career as a founder, which as a fellow founder, that's a title that we have a lot of reverence for as people that can actually start organizations and go from idea to success to growth. But she's worked with really small companies that have been acquired by PeopleSoft and Oracle and McAfee and Silverpop and IBM. So she's done a lot of very interesting things. Probably the most well-known fact about her is that she holds the license for TEDx Atlanta and has been bringing together some of our most powerful stories and many things. So without further ado, Leadership Speaker Series, Jacqui Chew.
Thank you, James. Wow. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here, and I now know how it feels when the actors do dinner theater. I've actually never done this before where people are eating. So no, please don't be sorry. Eat. It's Taco Tuesday. And folks online, everyone's noshing away on their tacos. And so you'll hear the crunching. It's not me, it's them. As James said, I do hold the license for TEDx Atlanta, and I had prepared a talk that was completely unrelated to TEDx Atlanta, and then I got really bored with it. And I thought, gosh, if I'm really bored with the topic, I don't think I want to share it with the rest of them. And so today I thought I would give y'all a brief overview of TEDx Atlanta, and we can do a deep dive, we can skim over and go straight to Ask Me Anything. But my career essentially has been corporate, startups, corporate again, but throughout the whole journey, TEDx has been the constant since 2009. You know, you kind of sprinkle in there a little bit of, mental health issues, a little bit of a divorce issues and all that. So life has been a roller coaster. It's been a grand experiment for me, and that's kind of how I see it. So with that said, I'm going to dive into this part where y'all don't have to say anything, and by the time you're done with your meals, then you're going to have to participate. Does that sound good? Okay, great. All right, so I've been curating for the last 14 years, and I'm going to try very hard, folks online, to not move around too much. I've been curating for the last 14 years and amplifying the voices of Atlanta's thinkers, doers, storytellers. So in the TED tradition, we don't have titles. We don't box people into little boxes. They are thinkers, they're doers, and they're storytellers. Sometimes they're all three. But I've been doing it with a team. There's an entire team since 2009. But I've remained constant. The team has come and gone, different members of the team, because we are 100% volunteer driven. So this is an image of our 2023 team that was taken at the event this year in May at the Rialto Center for the Arts. If you go to Flickr and you do a search for TEDx Atlanta, all one word, and you click on people when you do the search, you will find the TEDx Atlanta account. You will find albums of every single year that we've done a conference. In every single photo, in every single album, there is a group shot or multiple group shots of the team, generally doing something similar to this, but they're all different faces. About 50% are new faces, with 50% coming back year on year. Some years we have a 75% return rate and a 25% attrition rate, which is really great for us. So here's our impact. So this is the true impact. Now we set forth, I didn't know that I was going to be doing this for 14 years when I started this out in 2009. I had no idea. I also didn't know that the Atlanta event was amongst the first 16 to ever be organized anywhere in the world. Atlanta, little old Atlanta. Tokyo was amongst the 16. Lagos was amongst the 16, all in 2009. And there are not very many of us organizers left from 2009. We just had the TED Women Conference here in Atlanta last week. And basically, my team and I hosted 200 TEDx organizers from 45 countries. Think of the languages, think of the accents, think of the cultural richness of those conversations. And only 22%, less than 1 out of 4 of those are returning organizers. So it's really hard work, but it's really fulfilling work. Sort of kind of like what you all do. What you do is really hard. Some days are harder than others, but it's really meaningful work that you do. Big impact. So here's our impact over the years. We've put forth 220 plus talks on the stage that have amassed 31 million online views and counting. Yay. 33 performances, amazing performances, and 21 of those 220 talks have been selected by TED to be featured on their global channels. Just to give you a sense of order of magnitude, there are 200,000 plus TEDx talks currently on YouTube. That's staggering. And there are 3,000 groups, just like mine, just like ours, all over the world. And in fact, on any given day, if you average it all out, those of you who are numbers geeks, there would be 8 conferences going on somewhere in the world. It's pretty staggering. It is the world's largest, most prolific, independent ideas platform. All right, so we have year-round programming, and there are adventures. You may recognize Akisi Stokes-Nelson. Yes? No? Maybe? Yes? So those of you who don't, who amongst you have tried mealworms?
Yeah, I think I just had some.
Yes. And what was it in? A cookie, yes. And how did it taste?
It tastes like a good cookie.
Cookie, right. A high-protein cookie at that. So Akisi has a regenerative style farm in container units. The numbers are something like she can produce 4 times more protein over a 6-month period in her container unit than it's some ungodly thing. It's more protein pound for pound with her grubs than chicken breast. And her mealworms do not need water to grow, which is great, right? And they'll eat scraps. So, when you have leftover chips or lettuce from today or beans, the mealworms, that's what they can feed on. And so it's extremely sustainable. It tastes really good. So we did an adventure to her farm. So what are adventures? Adventures are simply adult field trips. They are an opportunity, a fun opportunity to learn about science and design, creativity, regenerative farming, and just about anything in Georgia. So at some point, we'd love to do an adventure here. And it's a way to learn hands-on. So we believe in multiple modalities of learning to be the most effective way for people to spark discussion, to spark their curiosity about topics that they would never be interested about, and for them to be more interested in the world around them. Adventures is one of them. The other is Becky Griffin. She's the founder, she is a UGA professor. She's also the founder of the Great Pollinator Census. Who's heard of that? Okay, so do we like bees? Yeah. Okay, yeah, this is the crowd that likes bees. So I've been to other places like, no. So she created this project 4 or 5 years ago now. It is now in 4 different states. It's super exciting. So we conducted an adventure with her as the host on the 2 days of the pollinator census. And then finally, we have salon conversations, which could be really interesting. I'd love to do one here as well on what is inclusive sustainability. And salons are when a town hall meeting format meets speed dating, and they have a baby, we have ourselves a salon. Okay, so we invite 6 experts on a topic with different, each of the experts have different perspectives, and we invite participants at a ratio of 1 expert to 10 participants, so 6 experts, 60 people max. We use a TED Talk to spark conversation. We prep our experts ahead of time with some light facilitation skills and tools, along with some prompt questions. They come to the event. Do they get to talk? No. They're actually there to listen, to facilitate, and to debunk myths based on their field of research or expertise. And so after watching the film, everyone breaks into their tables. An expert finds their table. Every 10 minutes, the expert rotates to the next table. Sound like speed dating? Kind of. Speed dating for the brain. And by the end of the event, all of the participants would have had the opportunity to have conversations and discussions with all of the experts. The experts then are asked to summarize verbally the one thing they took away, the one thing they will take away and add to their work, and the one myth that they debunked. Participants are asked the one thing different they would do after the event for more action-oriented forward steps. And so we also have, for the introverts amongst us, we have an expression wall for people to provide that sort of feedback, but in writing. So this here is a salon conversation around what is ethical food. And we had folks from Grubbly Farms, you may have heard of them. We had folks from the Community Farmers Market, the head of that, and several others. And it was a really popular and lively discussion. We essentially package all of the information up, and when we put it on our blog and we make TED aware of it, TED sometimes chooses to feature us. And so what that really means is Georgia now gets elevated to a global platform. So people have asked me, why do you host TEDx Atlanta? You don't get paid. You're 100% volunteer. You run a business. You work with startups. They're really hard charging. When do you sleep? And the answer is very little. And my answer is, Atlanta and Georgia, by extension, has so much to offer. It is such an amazing place to live. It is the state, the place that I choose to call home. but there's so little known about it. So we had 1,500 people come for TED Women. About half, more than half, were from out of state or from some other part of the world. And I already told you about the 200 TEDx organizers. I cannot tell you how many times I kept hearing, I didn't know, oh my gosh, you have this. This whole idea of we are the city, what's the factoid? That we're the city with the largest tree canopy? Is that, okay. So people didn't know. I mean, yes, I know it's dwindling. Yeah, we're cutting the trees. Yes, I get it. Nonetheless, we still have tree canopy. This is a very little known fact. Prior to this, some people didn't even know Coca-Cola's headquarters was here. Sometimes it makes me wonder what they really think of Atlanta. They probably don't at all. So anyway, what does that give us? That gives us, this experience of doing this for 14 years gives us a really unique lens into reframing a topic, say sustainability, curating the different perspectives, and then convening different stakeholders and being that platform, if you would, for people to be able to have open and informed discussions. So that is the goal. Our belief is that the more we are able to learn about something, the facts, the science, the data, the more likely we are to change a perspective, or the more likely we are to be open to a different perspective. And when we're open to a different perspective, that's when change happens. It's very, very slow sometimes, but there's always a tipping point, and change happens when you reach that tipping point and you just go over. I'll tell you, we got the opportunity, a bunch of us got the opportunity to watch a premiere of a documentary. It's produced by TED. It's part of their Countdown conference. Who here has heard of Countdown? So TED has a conference called Countdown. So there's TED Women, and then there's Countdown. And Countdown is devoted completely 100% to climate action. It is my dream and wish to host one here. Just got to have the bandwidth. Once again, 24 hours in a day, I do have to sleep a little bit. And they premiered this documentary that was really fascinating, that was shot during the Countdown conference in Detroit this year, that happened in Detroit in June. And the experts say, so I can't wait for the documentary to come out. It's probably going to be out on Netflix. The experts say that, we have been having incremental change, but we have reached this point where we are on the cusp of exponential change. That's the thesis, or the through line of the documentary. And they gave examples, the various speakers gave examples, data-driven examples, of why they thought that it's not going to take another 20 years or 30 years for XYZ to happen. It could happen as quickly as the next 5 years, the next 3 years, because of all the work that had been done already, all the heavy lifting that had been done, that we are on the cusp of exponential change. So I wanted to share that with you. It's a very hopeful, very optimistic, very TED-like documentary. The devil's in the details, and I look forward to eliciting your feedback when that documentary shows up. Okay, so this is kind of our thing. This concludes the official show and tell, me talking at you. I'm going to turn it over to you since everyone has stopped eating. It is now time for the Ask Me Anything. So I'm going to just have a seat and we're just gonna chat.
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you. That was fascinating and amazing what you've done and what you continue to do. What, just talking about how your sort of attrition rates and was that sort of planned in the beginning, or not planned, but initially it seems like you kind of leaned into it and gone with it. But were you freaking out in the beginning because that's a lot with all that turnover. You have to kind of, how do you establish your culture? How do you maintain your all the challenges of dealing with that kind of turnover?
So the good news is, I'm president of Ideas into Action, licensee of TEDx Atlanta. It's all very cool, and I'm not paid. No one is paid. You have to remember there are no salaries involved. We have a zero-sum budget. It's pretty stark. We raise enough money, or we amass enough in-kind services and finances to fund the event. If there's a leftover, if there's leftovers, it goes to an escrow account, a rainy day fund, and it helps us fund the year-round programming, some of that costs. But for the most part, we're not mandated. We're encouraged by Big Ted yes, they are Big Ted. We're encouraged to create a zero-sum budget for a whole variety of reasons. Nothing is accomplished with emotion. I can get mad. I can get, did I get mad? Did some of us get mad at certain things? Yeah, we did, but you have to get over it. I choose, I have control over how I react to someone that I had spent 6 months nurturing and succession planning and developing to take on the license, and then she disappears 3 months before the event. This truly happened in 2018. I can choose to be mad at. I was mad. My poor spouse heard about it for about 24 hours and in the most potty mouth way possible. And then I just said, okay, all right, what's a path forward? That's just, it's almost, I think the experience working with startups and the setbacks that inevitably happens when you're a founder or when you're starting something or you try to build something, it just gives you those muscles. Some days are really bad, but then there's always no one dies. This is not life and death here. That's kind of keep it in perspective. Thanks for the question, though. Yes.
I was curious, do you expect, this seems like a little bit of a formula to the way TED Talks go, and then you've done a really good job at kind of bringing these other platforms into, the TEDx Atlanta events. Do you see a change of that, especially trying to reach different generations that are looking at even shorter attention spans, and what do you see as the future of the platform in this?
We are first and foremost a human first endeavor. And the day that people don't come to the things that we host is the day that we say, all right, we have lost touch, we are irrelevant, and we need to stop, and we need to go back, and we need to listen to what is needed. So to answer your question, so what have we done? The conversations are immensely popular because it doesn't require you to sit down and listen to anything for any length of time. It's a conversation. And it's participatory. The adventures, that format is incredibly popular as well. Because, what are you doing? You're going out and you're doing something with strangers and making connections that way. So those are definitely, those were specific things that, they didn't tell us we want an adventure or we want a conversation. They wanted to have more intimate, more participatory outlets and of learning. And so we designed something that would give them, and we continue to refine the format and the topics and on and on. So it's an iterative process. It never stops. Anything else? Yeah.
What was your path to tech? Because I imagine that 2009 was not the start of careers, and I feel like that's a really distinct shift to acquire a license and have one for.
Oh boy, oh boy. Okay. All right. So the Genesis story. Yeah, I get this. I get asked this a lot. This is the Genesis. No, this is not made up. It truly. Okay. So I didn't hold the license in 2009. I've been organized since 2009, but in a different capacity. So what happened? This is a true story. But I have to go back to 2005. In 2005, January, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I had no idea. It was probably the most freaked out moment or period, not moment, period in my life, because I live here by myself, single. And I also met my husband the same month. And apparently my mood swings and symptoms did not scare him, so we are happily married, 17 years this month. And in my ignorance and possibly denial, I wasn't managing the disorder as a chronic condition, that it was. And so based on some lifestyle choices that were not good for me, as in not sleeping, I relapsed and had a major episode in 2008 that lasted for 15 months, took away many of my cognitive capabilities. I couldn't talk for possibly 3-5 months or so. This would not have been possible during that period. Didn't leave the house. Leaving the house was hard. Getting out of bed, hard. All of that. And when I started to feel better in 2009, this was the summer of 2009, I was on LinkedIn. I had stopped my career completely because I'm a knowledge worker. What do? I communicate, I speak, I write. I couldn't do any of those things. And as I was feeling better and recovering, I started going on LinkedIn and I could read again. And I saw a little logo. It was the TEDx logo on my friend's profile. I gave him a call. We had a talk. He said, yeah, it's this thing. I'm like, oh, it's related to that, because I'd always known about the TED conference. He invited me to the planning session at the Buckhead Club in August. That was my very first meeting, and I've never looked back. It's not an overstatement to say that that experience, the confidence that it gave me to exercise my professional skills, literally brought me back to myself. So TEDx saved my life in more ways than one. And I've been paying it forward and giving back ever since.
Thank you.
Anyone else? That was a good question.
Well, I don't want to hog you, but I have another question. How do you approach, I guess, politics? Because you're pushing ideas.
I love it.
People come in it with a political mindset or agenda maybe.
It's all about the reframing.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
It's all about the reframing. It is not so, oh my gosh, I had the pleasure of working with Joe Bankoff. Do y'all know who Joe Bankoff is? He is, he's just a great guy. He spent 30 years at King & Spalding as a partner. He is a constitutional law nerd. He knows international law. He was part of the dealings of the Olympics and all the complicated international legal dealings. And then after 30 years, he retired, but they wouldn't let him retire. They asked him to be the president of the Woodruff Arts Center. And under his leadership, he essentially oversaw a capital campaign that made Woodruff what it is today, all the extensions and such. And then he tried to retire again, and then he said, no. They said, okay, the Georgia Tech folks, and he didn't go to Georgia Tech. The Georgia Tech folks said, oh, the dean of the Samnon, I'm never going to, it's a very long, School of International Affairs, just left, and we're doing a search. Would you come on as the interim dean? 7 years later. So 7 years later. So now he truly is retired now. He still sits on a couple of boards. Anyway, I had the chance to work with him on a very important topic that is, I believe, is disrupting and destroying American democracy. This is not an overstatement. It is the gerrymander. And it is legal. The ripple effect of the gerrymander, or the redistricting every 10 years, the redistricting is done in the favor of whichever party is in power, okay? What it's done is it's taken the power of the vote from you and I and put all of that power in the party. So in the primaries, the candidates who run, and if they want to win, they have to be the most loyal to the party line, whatever the party it may be. But nowhere in our Constitution does it say that it's we are currently at the for the party, by the party, of the party. Our Constitution says we the people, of the people, for the people, by the people. There is nothing about party. And so his talk talks about that is the crux of the rot that is going on in American democracy. And it was a powerful talk. It was selected by Big Ted, to be featured and amplified on a more global level, and has been well received. I encourage you to watch that talk. It's very, very powerful. There are groups, now it is not a solutions talk, so it's not formulaic as in, here's the problem, here's the villain, and here are the 3 things that you can do. It's none of that. It's really all about dissecting the implications, the ripple effect of the gerrymander, how it came about, what it's done over the course of just 40 years to American democracy. And it suggests a couple of different efforts. Joe, being the lawyer that he is, favors a constitutional solution because the Supreme Court has now, of course, SCOTUS has pushed it down to states to decide. So it now has to be fought state by state by state at the Supreme Court of the state, at the state level. So in the 5 months that he and I worked together very closely, in 27 and a half versions of that talk, to ensure that it was 100% bipartisan or nonpartisan, and it just dealt with the issues, I learned a lot. And it's probably another reason, that is the second reason why I spend all this time to host and to organize, because I'm selfish. I like to learn. It's a great way to learn. Yes?
So how do you find like a good variety of speakers for these TEDx events, especially if there are people who may not have their voices heard or get a lot of press just in general?
So if you look at our speaker lineup, there are very few known people. We don't have the CEO of this or the SVP of that. We don't have those. We exclusively do not curate people. We curate ideas. And that seems very strange, so I'll give you a sense. So let's just say we look at the tree canopy. I'll go back to tree canopy because it's fun. So Atlanta has this reputation, the data supports it, and so we as a team would sit back and go, so what? What's happening to it, to this? Who's involved in maintaining it? What if it's not there anymore? What if it's diminished over the years? What happens? What happens from a science perspective? What happens from a temperature perspective? Who's monitoring these things? So we have, those are the kinds of questions that we're asking each other in the group. So, and then we're not gonna have the answers because we're not experts. So we tap into our brain trust, people who know these things. And me, because I'm sort of the nerd, I would scour peer-reviewed journals online. PubMed is my friend. There are several others. And we would look at the latest research, preferably from a Georgia-based research university or institute. And does Southface, so whilst I'm here, does Southface publish and do primary research? Because we'd love to include that as part of our process. It's a very journalistic approach, if you would. That's why it's curation. We don't have a selection committee. It's not a popularity contest. It's really all about ensuring that we're surfacing the ideas. And then once we have a sense of the idea, we put it out into our brain trust network and find the person most qualified to speak to the idea from a unique perspective. So that's a more serious topic. Joe Bankoff's topic on gerrymandering was a very timely topic because there was a case in SCOTUS that had to do with redistricting. So we wanted to be sure that that talk happened this year. And then we do pepper our day with more whimsical talks. Who here knows Alistair Dove? Okay, so this is sustainability. He is a conservationist across that way. He is the head of research. It's a very long title, but he's the head of research and programming at the Georgia Aquarium, and he is one of the world's foremost experts on the whale shark. And he gave a charming talk on the 5 life lessons from the world's biggest fish. I encourage you to take a look at that as well. And it was a delightful, just very delightful perspective on this beautiful animal that we know very little about, that disappears, that their young disappears for 3 years. Humans know nothing, scientists know nothing about those 3 years, and then they emerge, as young adults. It's the weirdest thing. That's one of the strange things about the whale shark. There are many others. And so we call those sort of, like, if you watch a movie, you gotta have light moments that don't jar from the main storyline, but you gotta have a little bit of light moments. We call it texture and tension. So we do curate for that as well. Because what we're really doing is we have 4 sessions during the day, and we're telling a story of the theme, We Rise, over the course of a day with those 4 speaker blocks. So every block is a chapter. Every speaker is a little anecdote within the chapter. It is extremely complex, but that's what we do. I'm a storyteller, so that is what I do. But yes, I get that a lot. Mm-hmm. Anyone have an idea we're spreading? Anyone have an idea we're spreading? Oh, come on now.
Sure, how to make sustainability sexy.
We're working on that. You want to join us? We have volunteer spots open. James, can I borrow? Okay, cool. You're on. All right. Sorry, you had a question.
Yeah, so I'm sort of mulling this over in my head while you've been talking. I really love the idea of this more behavior change component to it as well. I was just sort of curious, how do you go about, you and the team, trying to get new audience members that you maybe initially attracted to this content?
Our biggest ambassadors are the people who came to this year's event. The current attendees bring people the following year. It's sometimes it's sheer peer pressure. Other times it's like you have to. You are not cool if you don't come with me. That's just sheer peer pressure. And then other times it's like, I don't want to. I had such a great time. Please come with me too. We can talk about X, Y, and Z. And it's more of a, I'm your friend. Do this for me as a friend, a favor thing. So it's very organic. So we also have community partners. So like each of these organizations, Southface being one of them, you have your community. So the beautiful thing is we don't compete with anyone because we're not about doing of the doing. We're about putting forth, advancing an idea, and then sparking discussion around it. So we could partner with just about anyone. Ideas can partner with just about anyone on a co-branded basis. TEDx Atlanta has to take a more independent approach because of the license rules. So to come back to your question on how do you get people to join or to come, these discussion programs also serve as, it's sometimes a person's first touch with us, and then they choose to come back to the main stage event. Most of the conversation events are free. So are the adventures. Yep. Did I see a hand go up? Anyone else?
I'll ask one.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a master storyteller, how do we tell our stories more?
Who's master story? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
How do we package sustainability and resiliency and make more people understand what we understand? We see it in a certain lens and view, but a lot of people we deal with don't.
So it's really all about them and not about you. We live in a what's in it for me world. And so there was a brilliant talk on TED. It was on last year's TED conference. This guy made the economic argument for certain practices that would be economically viable or beneficial, literally. And it just brings people who are sort of on neutral. It made them think about it. Now that talk didn't convert everyone, but it gave people a perspective that they were familiar with. So the trick is not to talk in my language. For instance, what is inclusive sustainability? I'm asking a question. I'm not giving a solution. We're going to curate the experts to come in to offer their perspectives and their expertise and to debunk myths. And through that discussion format, there's no telling, there's conversing. It's a two-way conversation. On a more mass and corporate comms level, which is what I think you're asking, telling the sustainability story through the lens of those organizations that engage with your services and the outcomes is generally going to be the fastest way for resonance. Because once again, it's about them. You highlight them. I'll give you an example. So I was part of has nothing to do with TEDx. I was part of the Arthritis Foundation's 50th anniversary. I mean, arthritis is not exactly a sexy, it's really not sexy. But it was the 50th anniversary and we had to have a media moment and it was, we wanted to do, the higher ups wanted a big hoo-ha, and I was on the external PR team. And so we came up with, the 50 heroes. We spotlighted the heroes, those who are living with arthritis, the research scientists who uncovered breakthrough treatment protocols for certain types of arthritis conditions. So we told the story through them. And that has always worked. American Cancer Society does the same thing. No one wants to talk about cancer. No one wants to talk about cancer. But their More Birthdays campaign was brilliant. It was literally more birthdays. See, you smiled. It kind of tugs at the heartstrings.
So follow-up question on that. We know who Brene Brown is.
Yes.
because of TED.
Yes.
And I think her most famous quote is that people are emotional beings that think we're rational beings.
Yes. Well, there's actual neuroscientific research to that statement. Yes.
So how do we incorporate that into our storytelling? Because we tend to be very fact-based. We want to have a rational argument and talk about energy efficiency or how to build better buildings. And
You can
too
have.
dry and boring, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
Or
Okay. All right.
together.
This is an easy fix. Would you give me like easy questions? Okay. So if you're doing energy efficiency, right, and you have the numbers, y'all are excited about that because we all nerd out about these things. Just like, I was planning to do a talk on how to communicate effectively, and I got bored with it because I was talking about story structure, and I was like, no, I'm not doing it to these people, poor things. So what if you flipped it around? Well, okay, so they have saved this much more. Well, what does it really mean to the humans? How does it impact the humans? The building now is whatever the outcome is to the building, whatever statistics. How does it affect the people in those buildings? How are their lives improved? Are their lives improved? I don't know. Are their lives improved? Are they somehow positively impacted? As a result of what you all have done, what the company and you all have done, what has it enabled the humans in the equation to do? Sometimes it's what it has enabled them to not have to do. And that's powerful. And that would be a comms consulting. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. We have 3 minutes left. I'll take a last question and then we'll wrap it up. I've never spoken at a lunch thing when everyone's like heavy from lunch. Thank God so thank you for getting tacos and not pasta, because that would have been horrible.
What inspires you, or what idea that might be still being formed out there? What are you excited about right now that is on the horizon?
Literally, as part of there are two topics. What is financial inclusion and what is inclusive sustainability? Those two topics. And now we are focusing on the curation and shaping the trajectory of that series. It won't be a main stage. It won't be our main conference topic. Not really. Maybe it will, but it's going to be part of the year-round programming series. Those two things.
You converge at a certain point too.
Yes. What I didn't tell y'all, last thing, is Ideas has 3 pillars. We believe that humans will have a better future and live a better life if our communities are connected in every way, including borders. And for us to be connected, we have to have equity. Equity is necessary at every level. And when we achieve that, and so financial inclusion is one of those, and so is inclusive sustainability, see how it all works. And when we achieve that, or some measure of that, we will have more humans who will have the ability to engage more civically, which then creates a virtuous cycle. They will have voice in the way we govern. We are governed. We will have that voice, and therefore, it will trickle down to healthier us, healthier humans mentally and physically. Those are our 3 pillars, and all those topics they intersect. That's how we think about the future. Bless you. I'm glad you asked that question. All right.
Thank you so much.
That's it. Thanks, guys. Bye.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
I
was
looked
fun.
at faces.